I call the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Kia ora, namahinui kia koutou. Kia ora. I rise to take a call in support of the Members of Parliament Remuneration and Services Bill. Mr Speaker, the Greens weren't involved in the drafting of this legislation, but I think the Greens can take some of the credit behind this bill. The Greens have been champions for transparency in this Parliament for more than 10 years. We've been leading the call. We've been putting our own expenses in the public arena well before the other parties. We've dragged them kicking and screaming, but it's great to see this whole Parliament come together now, finally passing a bill like this to encourage transparency. Mr Speaker, I won't blow our own horn anymore in this speech, but I think it is important to say that we were championing this cause when it wasn't popular, when we were the only people talking about it. And I think in particular Materia Toure, our co-leader who is in Senegal, I understand, at the moment attending a global Greens conference, who would be giving this call in particular, has championed that lead. So, Mr Speaker, this bill does a number of basic things. Mr Speaker, I'll focus on the important issues with this bill, Mr Speaker. And I guess the key issue is that... You're right. The key issue, Mr Speaker, is that every party, I think, has had their share of less than clear, sometimes... we have seen illegal activities by members in other parties, Mr Speaker. So I think we do have to improve. And the key thing is, the key lesson that we learn, whether it be in the UK with the members' expense scandal there or scandals we've seen in New Zealand, is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Having an open, transparent regime where the public, where the media can investigate, is the best way to avoid those scandals occurring in the future. I guess coupled with that, what we have to have is clarity. We have to have clear rules that all members understand, and I'll discuss that in a little more detail soon. So the key points I've identified in this bill is the change to the travel and accommodation entitlements for MPs and ministers. So that's moving to the Remuneration Authority along with our salaries. We now have the travel and accommodation there. The Speaker still has a huge number of determinations to make in Speaker's rulings to do with our officers, other services, funding to parties, qualifying for electoral candidates, travel services in respect to MPs participating in political exchanges, and hopefully what we've also seen is this place change again with the election of Mojo Mathers and the debate that had to be had in this Parliament, which is the principle that every MP, be they disabled or not, should get the same level of services as any other member. We know we've got $1 million of speaker systems above our head, but there was quibbling over between $20,000 and $30,000 in expenditure for a single member who couldn't participate. So there still is a lot left up to the Speaker's discretion and the Speaker's rulings, but moving the travel will help. The member Chris Hipkins noted that MPs are likely going to get the flack when salaries are raised, if they're raised in the future. And I think it's a fair comment. I think it's an accurate reflection of the truth. But I think it's also the halfway house this Parliament's tried to have, where we've tried to take away responsibility for our salaries, but we've still left considerable areas such as travel and accommodation left up to ourselves. And what the public, I think most of all, doesn't want to see is that principle that we're making our own decisions. We've left the wolf in the hen house in charge of the decision. So hopefully by clarifying this, by getting rid of that halfway house, having all of that given to the Remuneration Authority, that'll help clear up the public misconceptions, and that we'll see less of that backlash if there are salary rises in the future. The current voluntary disclosure regime for MPs' travel and accommodation gets moved to statutory. Now, we were the first party in Parliament in 2009 to voluntarily release all of our expenses to the media and the public. I think that's a good thing. Now we're seeing all the other parties follow suit, and now we're putting into legislation. We think that's good for our democracy, good for transparency, good for the public's perception of MPs, which, let's be frank, isn't always the best. The Chris Carter cause, named by Chris Lochinville, I think will make him the creator of that said clause, is good. I mean, $10 a day is just laughable, and it was hardly a sanction at all. And I think, again, it removes the respect that people have for this institution. It's a good modernisation. I guess in particular, skipping through the bill, the changes to the impact of an MP's spouse or dependent children on the unfortunate death of an MP. We think that makes sense and is a good call. So what we're seeing in summary is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. We're taking that approach throughout this bill. That's why we're supporting it. That's why we've called for these measures for a long time. We're very happy that we're seeing them finally. We think we can do a bit more. When you look at the international travel for MPs, I think this is a big problem that this House is going to have to grapple with. We could have done it in this legislation. The public doesn't understand, well, I don't even understand why we're doing it. The fact that both our super scheme and air travel perks, because they are seen as perks, even though, Mr. Speaker, I'm absolutely sick of airports and sick of flying, I don't see it as a perk, but the public do see it as perks. And the fact that we've done it in lieu of remuneration, in lieu of salary rises in the past, it's not very clear to the public, it's not very clear to MPs. We're sending the wrong message. I think the Minister Pansy Wong did get caught up in that. There was obviously some misproprietaries as well, but I think the confusion didn't help. So we've also got this perhaps Pansy Wong clause. I think it would be interesting to actually undertake a survey of MPs. How many MPs actually use the travel privilege when they're not using it for work purposes? I think what you'd find is actually a number of MPs don't use it. I myself don't use it. Ever since I entered this House, I've never used it. I only ever use it for work purposes. Because where else in the country, what other sector of the economy do people get unlimited domestic travel with no business requirement, no checking system? Mr. Speaker, I think the public find it ridiculous. I think it's antiquated. It goes back to the age of steam when we used to arrive here on trains and sail ships. And I think we should look at that. And that's also going to clear up these Pansy Wong type situations in the future. So the Green Party joins the other parties in this House voting for the bill. We look forward to the Select Committee process. We urge the public to have their say in the Select Committee process. We agree with the Labour Party that we shouldn't be sending the message we should have a constrained or shortened Select Committee period. What we need to be doing is sending the message that we are upfront, we're going to be transparent, all elements of our remuneration, our privileges and the passing of the laws to enact those. So we think as long as Select Committee process is appropriate, it sends the right message to the public. But Mr. Speaker, we're very happy to be supporting this bill today. Kia ora.
Nikki Kay.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to speak on this legislation.